Welcome to the Upshot, Oldie World Disc Golf's podcast about the latest in the disc golf world. I'm the editor, Charlie Eisenhood. Joining me is Josh Mansfield on this Thursday, October 26th. Josh, we're going to have a Halloween episode next week. Tuesday is the 31st. We got to do something.
Oh, we're going
to have a Halloween special.
Yes.
David Pumpkins.
I want to know if other people have ideas of what they'd want to hear, but I've got a couple ones that I'm kicking around that I think will be a lot of fun.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to think on it too. We got the off season is here. We haven't really shifted that much into off season show mode yet, but we do have a lot of things on the horizon. Mm-hmm. We got to do it's going to become an annual thing. We got to do our gaffs bracket. That was just a classic last year. So we'll do that again. If you have ideas for our gaffs bracket or any of these show concepts, please email us upshot@ultiworld.com. We don't want to miss anything. Mm-hmm. We're going to do some roundtable episodes. As everyone knows at this point, Josh and I are both having a baby soon, so that's going to impact the show. We're going to try to get some shows pre-recorded before I go out on leave, which will probably be sometime in about 3 to 4 weeks. So TBD on how that's all going to work. We might do fewer shows between, Thanksgiving and Christmas because of that. But we got a lot of fun stuff, but it'll start next week with a Halloween special. Today, we're going to be talking about the new DGPT Europe news. And we're going to have a couple of guests from the whole operation. Jeff Spring will be with us to discuss this, along with Juha Kytö, who is going to be taking over as kind of the lead in Europe. I believe his specific role is DGPT Europe Media Director. He was formerly the European Pro Tour CEO, and we had him on the show when they announced that they were doing this, and Disc Golf Stream and all of that. So more to come on that in a little bit. But first, Josh, you're wearing a Dallas Stars hat.
For good reason.
You knew. Prodigy has announced that they have a licensing agreement with the NHL, and they've already dropped a bunch of NHL branded putters in a black plastic with a gold stamp. They are very nice looking, and they've got a whole thing going here with the NHL. Not only are they doing disc stamps with NHL products, but they're doing activations in arenas at NHL games, which is pretty cool, Josh. And we're starting to see brands take on more of these kind of crossover things. We've seen Discraft do this a few times. They've got the Grateful Dead thing going on. Or is that Innova?
Discmania.
Discmania did the Grateful Dead thing?
Yeah. Okay. I think so, because Eagle has been
Discraft did the Star Wars thing.
Yeah.
We've seen this a little bit here and there. But this is the first time I feel like we've really seen it with another sports brand, and certainly a major one like this. What did you think? I know you're a big NHL fan. I feel like you got to love this concept.
Oh, I was stoked. And it's funny because I don't really throw any Prodigy, I don't think. I bought 3 of them, like that, no hesitation. I popped up, I saw them, I was like, oh, cool, I need 3 of those at least. So I bought 3 of the Dallas Stars ones. I will be keeping my eye on to see what other discs get released. I think this is awesome. And this is, look, is it a marketing gag that's got me hook, line, and sinker? Absolutely. And I know it. I am very well aware of it. Here's the interesting thing, though. Brand loyalty in disc golf, I've always found is a little bit weird, because I've never understood, I've never really understood the reasons why people insist on throwing only one bag unless they are making money to do so. I've heard the reasons, but okay. Anyway, players in disc golf fandom, right? I also find it a little bit difficult, and I always have, to have the one player that you root for above all else, and to have people who you absolutely don't like. I think that's becoming more clear as there's more media coverage and more surrounding the players. But how often do you hear people say like, oh, I love all 4 of these guys on the lead card. Like, I think it'd be great if any one of them won. People don't feel that way about sports typically. I have very strong feelings about the NHL and very strong feelings about my NHL team. And so when I have the opportunity to rep my NHL team, like that is an emotional, like, you're the same way with other sports, right? I don't know if you feel the same way about NHL, but
never gotten into hockey.
Yeah,
it's at the same time as hoops, and I'm an NBA guy.
See, and I minimally follow hoops because I'm following the NHL. But if they came out right now with like a Niners disc or a Giants, you got to.
How much would the NFL charge for licensing though? Like, it would be just outrageous. Like, the NHL actually needs the help. You know, I have no idea what the financial arrangement is here, but, you know, they're getting smaller, not bigger. And I feel like it's a good demographic fit on both sides. So it just makes sense to me. Like,
well, you know what else makes a ton of sense to me? Like, when I think of Prodigy, I know they're based out of Georgia, but I always, because of like Kale LaVisca and Preserve, I think of it and associate it more with like Minnesota. And so I just in my head associate Minnesota with Prodigy, and so when the NHL series comes out, I was like, oh, it makes a lot of sense
because of Minnesota.
Because of Minnesota, yeah. Oh yeah, big hockey there.
Yeah, well, you know, I'm curious to see what happens with this, but clearly there are going to be people like you who are like, I must get this disc with my team stamped on it, and the disc look really nice. I mean, genuinely, they look really nice. Well done from the like design and marketing team to roll these out in a way that's like it, you know, you could throw it, but you could also like put it up on your wall. I saw somebody somewhere say, as somebody who is a avid collector of Frisbees and of NHL merch, this is like the perfect item, you know, like you could put it in the man cave or whatever.
Right.
So I just think it's a cool thing. It's like it gives the appearance of disc golf sort of like going towards the mainstream, even though like this is just a kind of probably a standard licensing agreement.
Yeah.
But you know, there's enough here beyond just like you're allowed to put our logos on your product and sell it. You know, with the like activation side of this, that it tells me that this is like, you know, that the NHL people actually thought about like, hey, this is an opportunity for us to reach new fans from a demographic that is likely to be interested in, you know, our sports product.
Right.
And I think that's a cool thing. Kind of like goes both ways, right? It's not hard to imagine NHL fans getting into disc golf and similar in reverse.
And you know, honestly, nice like with league timing, right? Perfect.
Sure.
Baseball, people are watching disc golf or watching baseball. I mean, I know there are some who do it, but the fact that you know, NHL come to the winter and then during summer do disc golf.
Right. Well, NHL starts. They started like a couple weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. Yeah.
Okay. So like mid to late fall, NHL goes.
Perfect.
And then
timing.
winter. And then you're like starting to come back out to play some disc golf, and then it's like NHL playoffs. It's a nice fit. You're not wrong.
It finishes in June, and then I start watching disc golf beginning with the European Pro Tour.
There you go. I think did we have one other topic to get to?
Yes, we have PDGA rules.
Thank you.
So they released the rules for public comment and received public feedback. We're not going to go through all.
We talked about these rules a few weeks back. Everybody has to keep their own scorecard.
Yep.
This kind of thing.
Yep. We're not going to go through all the rule changes because some of them are very, very, very minor. All the changes from the first draft
proposed
to now. Yeah, proposed to what they're going to go with. The one big one though is that the tournament tiers, they had announced that you must be a PDGA member to play C tiers, and that they were going to create a D tier. That is not going to be the case anymore. They have scrapped that rule. It says the D tier will not be implemented. This isn't a press release that came out on the 17th. They say the D tier will not be implemented in 2024. That makes me think that that's still on the board and might be coming the year after, but not next year. And they are going to have a new registration tier that allows tournament directors to give current members priority when registering. I think that's really interesting, and I like that kind of change because there are tournaments that are designed to appeal to different demographics, right? A 2-round C tier that's held at a local park and is advertised to new players. We have one right around here in Idaho. It's on a nice, easy park. It's between two of the bigger communities in Southeast Idaho and is designed really to just get as many people out as possible. Really wants to like be kind of beginner friendly as well. Great tournament. But there are some that obviously are designed for members who are a little more advanced, a little more experienced in disc golf. And
Sure.
And so to give the TD can then kind of direct the flow of those registrations based on this priority list that they said is going to be used. So that's the change and the result of the public comment on the proposed rule change.
Another note, there was a rule in there that has been adopted about MPO players have to have a minimum rating of 935 to register for PDGA Major or Elite Series events. And they added a similar rule for FPO at 825 and up. So basically, you can't suck anymore and play in Worlds, like which I think is totally fine.
I agree. It's not high enough. I could register for Worlds.
Well, I mean, I don't know. You don't want to be horribly exclusive, right?
No, but I should not be able to register for Worlds, Charlie.
Hey, look, if you want to go and give your money to Isaac Robinson, you go ahead.
You know what? Fair point.
It's still a big chunk of the disc golf economy. Like,
you're right.
Having the bottom players pay the top players. That's still a big part of the payouts. Interesting about the D tier thing. I wonder why there was so much pushback about that, that they got rid of it. I didn't really think that was a problem to establish a new tier. Like, I don't know if that's because people don't like change or because they felt like it was too money grab from the PDGA to start requiring memberships for C tiers. But like, if there's a new thing that doesn't require membership, then what's the problem? I don't know.
I don't know.
It is worth noting, everyone's going to have to do their own scorecard now. That did not get changed. That is accepted and into the rules. I also really like that they adopted the rules about stroking the entire card. Mm-hmm. If there's delays, right? So the entire card will get a time violation if your card is slow. So like, to me, this creates the incentive for players on your card to call people on time violations so that they keep it moving, which I think is important.
Yeah.
So interesting. That I must say, I like how aggressive the PDGA is with its rule changes year to year.
Me too. That's a really good point. There are lots of sports and organizations that are not that aggressive. Is Ultimate like that?
Oh God, no. Oh my God. I mean, you talk about the world's most, there literally, we went 10 years with no major rule update.
Oh.
Think about that.
That's because
it's totally crazy.
Because Ultimate's perfect and has no flaws in their rule system,
my God.
right?
Don't get me started. I mean, there are so many glaring holes in the rules right now. And the rules committee has got to be like the world's most conservative people. They have like these old people on the rules committee who like want it to be like it was in the 80s. I'm like, these people just need to go. Okay. Time to go out to pasture. We're done with your vision of the rules. Like, we need to change things for the modern game. Anyway, I'll save it for an ultimate podcast. Okay. DGPT Europe. Mm-hmm. Okay. They've unified the 2024 European Tour. It's going to be called DGPT Europe. This is right on the top of the press release. The PDGA Europe, which has operated the PDGA Euro Tour, is in support of this new partnership. So what's happened here? The European Pro Tour, which was this separately operating tour in Europe from the PDGA Euro Tour,
right,
has merged into the DGPT. Now, I don't exactly know what that means, and we're going to ask Jeff and Juha when we have the chance in just a minute. And then they're adding a bunch of people. There's an operations manager coming on. There's a media director coming on. And they're going to merge the Disc Golf Stream live streaming service into Disc Golf Network. And DGN will have all of the 2024 live broadcasts. PDGA Euro Tour is not going to happen this year. It says pause. So, maybe TBD in the future. And there's going to be 5 Elite Series events in Europe. The Copenhagen Open, Turku Open, Swedish Open, Krokol Open, and the European Disc Golf Festival in Estonia between May and July. There will essentially be like a European point series along with some additional silver events that have yet to be named. And then you could also earn points towards the U.S. Tour standings. There's no real clarity on like how many points you can keep. Is there a maximum? I assume that there will be. But Josh, I mean, this is just a major power consolidation under the Pro Tour, both on the streaming side and on the event side, as they essentially take over the European Tour.
It absolutely is. And it's going to be interesting to see kind of how that consolidation functions logistically in terms of like for the player side, right? I think there's a lot of interesting business side that we're going to talk about, but obviously don't know very many details right now. But on the competition side, this is big, like as substantial as like when the national tour decided to suspend as well, right?
Yes.
It's same thing. PDGA is suspending their tour. I think that honestly is the best thing of this whole Europe consolidation. It's always been weird that like PDGA suspended the Euro tour or the national tour and then was like, oh yeah, but we still run professional disc golf over in Europe.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I guess you could call it weird, but there was nothing else. I mean, like Europe is like what, at least a decade behind the U.S. in terms of where its development path is.
And you're right, but I don't know why they couldn't when Euro Tour came out last year. Why did the PDGA not just call them and say, "Great, let's coordinate"? Right? We would love.
Well, that I don't know. Yeah, there was all kinds of.
Right.
Sniping in the
last
back.
year was weird.
Yeah.
It was weird last year. Anyway. So last year felt, I don't know about
it was a transition year.
Yeah. It was a transition year and felt like it. And so I think this is like a natural landing point for that transition. I got lots of questions. I'm excited to talk to Jeff and Juha. I think this is going to be a really interesting topic. But this consolidation, I think, and having a tour under a singular banner is going to be so good for the ability for Europe to integrate into a larger disc golf scene. I don't want to talk the US and the Europeans. I want it to really just be tour players, and I hope that the level of the game in Europe goes up. I hope that payouts go up.
Has been.
And I want that so that I want a European world champion. I want a European USDGC champion, right? That's the dream.
All right. Well, we're going to talk with Jeff and Juha right after this.
Pound's the best of the best. It's the quality, the craftsmanship, the vision for what a bag could be. Let's start from the beginning. I didn't choose Pound, I chose Levi. I trusted Levi to make the best bag possible.
He's always trying to innovate. He wants it to be perfect. And I think he's the kind of guy that nothing's ever perfect.
I trust the product, I trust the people behind the product.
At this point, I don't think anyone's disputing that it's the best made bag.
Welcome back to the Upshot. Joining us now, Disc Golf Pro Tour CEO Jeff Spring, along with Juha Kytö, who is the former European Pro Tour CEO and is now going to become the DGPT Europe Media Director. Jeff, Juha, welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us, Charlie.
Thank you both for being here. We were talking just before you came on about kind of the consolidation that's happening here that mirrors a little bit of what it feels like we've seen in the United States. And so I think my first question is, what's the motivation behind this change? I mean, we saw the Pro Tour kind of working alongside the PDGA Euro Tour last year to do some streaming coverage. We had these two sort of competing streaming platforms in a way, and now it's all coming under one banner under the DGPT. So why make this change after just one season of sort of attempting the European approach from DGN?
Yeah, I can jump in and share my perspective, and I'm sure Juha can follow up. But from our perspective, I'll just kind of tell you the story, the series of events on our end, which we talked about a little bit last year, or at the start of this year when it was announced that Disc Golf Network was going to be providing some live coverage of some of the PDGA Euro Tour events. So. That was at the request of the PDGA Euro Tour. As I mentioned at the time, they seemed very motivated to get live coverage of some of their events. We had already planned to do PCS and European Open, so we said, "Hey, we'll grab a few more." And we're the official Pro Tour of the PDGA, and it's a PDGA request. So we were interested since the founding of DGPT 2.0. Todd and I had this idea of expanding into the European market marked out very early. So when the opportunity to do more live coverage came up, we looked at it, but we said, okay, yeah, we'll do a little bit more. Our thought was, let's see how that goes. There's a lot of risks financially. I think that, we wanted to build more relationships across the continent with other tournament directors. So we wanted to have an assessment period. From our perspective, we had just kind of gone through, I've been involved with the tour since 2015, really, before it launched. And it was, I think, 6 full seasons that the Disc Golf Pro Tour operated with a national tour, side by side. And then we got to this merger. So, I wasn't sure, if we would get to this eventually or quickly. But, my thought was that we'd see how it goes, and that, over a period of time, we'd decide, hey, what works best, as a go forward strategy. But, however, early on in the season, Juha and I have spoken, at length before, dating back to 2020 when the DGPT first thought about coming over to cover some of the Euro Tour before the EPT. So we had some communications and, reached out, and we started talking about, hey, what does work for the European, professional scene. And that's when, Juha kind of shared his perspective, which I think, we share as well, certainly now, but just was for, less confusion, more certainty, more unification, for growth. And that's kind of where our talk started earlier this year. But I'll kick it to Juha to give his perspective on that.
We started I was in contact with Jeff. Actually, it was some podcast, or you were playing around with somebody and mentioned about DGPT planning to come to Europe, and we already kind of had the plan and vision that Europe needs a professional tour, and we were in talks, and then things happened like COVID, and their plan the DGPT's plan got kind of didn't even start, to be honest, at that time. And I'm kind of a person who doesn't like to wait things to happen, and rather just start making them happen and then see where it goes. And this was one of the many possible outcomes from what the all the actions take place in. So I would say that sums it pretty much up. Yeah.
Sorry, Juha. Delay in the internet, I think. One of the things that was included in the press release, and I think one of the biggest notes of the consolidation of this tour, is the consolidation of the media networks, and that DGN is going to be taking this over. It says that the Euro Tour streaming service subscribers are going to be rolled over into Disc Golf Network. Can you talk a little bit about what that process is going to look like, how that's going to affect the viewers and the subscribers, and the changes on the media side?
Yeah, we don't have all the details yet, like exactly how it is going to happen. But the base idea is, like I said, the Disc Golf Stream subscribers will be merged into the Disc Golf Network subscribers, and we are working on it with Vimeo, which is both of our platforms. So it should be quite easy to do. But we also want to make sure that all the European GDPR regulations are met, and that everything goes like it should go. And on the customer side, well, I'm quite sure that all the Disc Golf Stream subscribers are quite happy for the content that they will get for the off season and everything, which was one of our biggest kind of challenges on what we can offer on the off season. I've had some ideas, but we didn't have the resources, and hopefully maybe on the next winter we will see one of my ideas come together as well.
So was this a buyout, Jeff? I mean, did you acquire the European Pro Tour as a part of this whole thing, or is it less formal than that?
It wasn't an acquisition, but it was a merging of basically some of the resources and some of the staff of the EPT into the Disc Golf Pro Tour. As we mentioned, Prodigy Europe has a big stake in the EPT, and so we've made an agreement with Prodigy as well as part of this, who's been a great partner of the Disc Golf Pro Tour for years. And I think that they're excited about the path forward. Lasse Payu has been a great advisor and backer of the EPT, and he's going to be helping advise the European development for the Disc Golf Pro Tour Europe. And we're excited to kind of have this a little bit quicker than we were originally envisioning, but it does make a lot of sense to work together here. We're excited.
Yeah, I already got the question that
Juha, I know.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
go
got
ahead.
the question was this now an exit for us? And it's not an exit; it's an enter. We are entering to a totally new European disc golf era, which is it's gonna look fantastic.
So, Juha, question for you. Jeff mentioned the acquisition or the merger of kind of resources. I'm sure there's some physical infrastructure that's included in that, and you are now an employee of the Disc Golf Pro Tour. Do you have ownership shares in the Disc Golf Pro Tour or in Disc Golf Pro Tour Europe?
We are contractors with the DGPT full time. It's actually a new position for me as well, because I've been entrepreneur for pretty much 10 years now. So it's a new thing to have only 100 and plus hours per month of work. It sounds so little, and but yeah, I'm happy to work in the full time with the DGPT and especially the DGPT Europe and Disc Golf Network, and I can focus only on the media. Of course, I will be consulting the European events and kind of on the marketing side, because there's the expertise is there. So I can now put more into the DGPT Europe. Yeah.
So, kind of from the big picture standpoint, it feels like, now I know we don't know what the silver schedule is, so maybe that will be the answer to the question, but it feels like this is a significant contraction of the number of events that are a part of the European Tour, because last year we had all the EPT events and then a pretty significant PDGA Euro Tour calendar, but the PDGA isn't running the Euro Tour anymore, and there's only 5 events listed in the press release that are going to be, Elite Series on this new DGPT Europe. So is there going to be a more substantial tour than that? And what is the sort of the right size for a European tour in the summertime? That's going to be, whoever runs the tour.
I'll let Juha talk to the right size. I think he has the best perspective on that. But from my perspective, yes, silver is the answer here. We're aiming around 10 events total. That's going to be a point series with bonuses to the winners, tour cards to the winners. We hope that number matches up. Those details will be released when we get into our final, like, overarching, here's the global point series, the European point series totals, here's the qualifiers, and all the information that players and fans need to know on what each event means. And I think that 10 seems like a good number to me, for based on what the advice from our European counterparts is. I think last year, certainly there was multiple events at the same time, which was kind of some of the precipitating, kind of conflict that caused some of these discussions, is like, what is the best path forward? And I think that we were aligned in saying, okay, this was a little too chaotic, and what is going to be the best, not just for players, but also for the businesses? How are we going to make sure that we're maximizing viewership and strength of field at every stop? And I think that those were the kind of driving goals behind the outcomes that we're working towards. But I'll kick to Juha for kind of insight on what maybe would work best in his mind.
The 5 events compared to what we have had this year in total, like 20 or something. It's quite less than that. But the 5 are only the elite level events, the DGPT elite events, which have live, but then also the silver series, they will have a post-production. Unlike on media side, they will have a post-production, even that they don't have live. And for the players, they are valuable events, in even standalone, as a standalone events, but also as a tour. There is 10, 11, maybe 12 events in total on the European point system. And then on top of that, there is, of course, the national tours as well, like in Finland and Sweden and in Estonia, they will have a high level national tours. And we are, leaving free weekends for them as well. It's not only international European events all summer along, but it's still a possibility for the players that they can kind of, choose I want to start the top level. They can play in US in spring, and then jump on during May. They can jump to Europe, play the European DGPT events, both elite and silver, and they have the possibility to play the European national events if they choose to, or they can take a week off. And then after, I think somewhere around Worlds is where they can then go back to US and hopefully play there as long as they can, if they have enough points to be on semifinals and finals. And kind of same goes the other way around. The US players can first start the season there in US, and then at some point jump into Europe. And with the elite events here, they can even miss some of the US events and play the full European swing without actually losing almost anything in US. So it creates a possibility to go both ways for the players. So I wouldn't say it's as a number, it's less, but it's still quite good.
Little bit more nitty gritty details that maybe aren't worked out yet. Will winners of the European pro events or the European elite events, will they be guaranteed spots for the Pro Tour Championship?
Yeah, so that's something that's going to be determined or released. It's in discussion now, and I would just refer to them as DGPT events. They're the
events,
same.
okay.
Yeah, just DGPT events. They're international versus US, but they're really just DGPT events. I'll have 100 points each. And to that point, to the last question, there's more DGPT events in Europe. So from DGPT's perspective, I know that the touring scene is kind of now spread out a little bit, but I think for the DGPT side, we do see this as a bit of an increase. But yeah, I mean, I think that that rule, winner gets in. I think we refer to it as the Kristen Tatar rule from a couple years back when it wasn't in place. And I think we were dealing with COVID, and she had a win, but she was not in. now maybe it's the Parker Welk rule. That, the determination of how that'll be applied in 2024 is happening. We've had some internal discussions and are trying to get more information on, what's the most appropriate application for Europe.
Jeff, how did the European efforts go this year, do you think? I mean, from a business perspective, I mean, it's been cool to see the development of European disc golf in general, but, not all of the events were necessarily super well attended, and I'm curious to know how they were watched. Were you seeing return on investment for the efforts for all of the streaming that was going on over there in Europe this year?
We felt like, so viewership numbers were, equivalent for some events, kind of bouncing around Silver Series numbers. And we felt like we had a lot of success. We had a partnership with Pulse, the studio out of Helsinki, and we look to contract Pulse again in some capacities going forward as Juha kind of puts together the media plan for Europe. For 2024. So we saw them as valuable. And in fact, a lot of our subscribers gave direct feedback about the added value to their subscription, being able to, kind of watch in the morning. One thing we feel is that the viewership of, weekends that had two events was certainly maybe splitting an audience. And we wanted to focus on one event per weekend where we can really galvanize viewership around that one event. So that was part of our strategy. If you look at the schedule that's been released, we'll bounce back and forth and really try to, focus all of our viewership, in everything that comes with that, whether it's, Eyes Through Disc Golf Network. We picked events that we felt like are going to bring in a lot of spectators, be enticing to the fans in the US, add value to their subscription, but also be able to garner, kind of regular sponsorship. So we felt like they were successful financially enough to keep going with this investment. And we see a bright future because some revenue streams we didn't bring on last year were ticketing and sponsorships for, the Euro Tour, which was the PDGA's property at that time. We're partners, obviously, and we were supporting it, but we were only looking at subscription, dollars. We definitely see a boost. So one interesting fact that's related to this question, I'm sure will be illuminating, is that, we went from, I think, around 12% international viewership before the first time we broadcast the European Open and PCS and that raised up to about 17%. Well, after the Euro Tour last year, we were pushing 30% international viewership. And we see that as a good thing. The international market is coming on board, and we think there's a lot more there. So financially, we're excited, and we think that strategically, we're approaching it, kind of from a more with more wisdom this year, spreading out the events, really being able to bring on our typical Disc Golf Pro Tour revenue streams. And excited to kind of go into year two.
If I can also just ask you, how many subscribers are you expecting to integrate over to DGN?
I don't have the exact numbers, but I can say from the ratio that I think it was way half of our subscribers were not actually Disc Golf Network subscribers. So we kind of had the new audience for it. Maybe it came from us covering only the European events or what it is, but it was the ratio of like US subscribers versus or DGN subscribers versus not DGN subscribers were quite surprising for me.
What's the future look like here? I mean, is the goal to have an international tour that is sort of a single unified tour and the whole operation moves from the US to Europe for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, something like that? An extended European swing, or are you planning on having sort of two concurrently running tours, one in the US, one in Europe, that has crossover mostly in the sort of like the beginning and the end of the season?
Yeah, I think that Juha kind of described a pattern that may, kind of come to bear, and I'll let him talk about the European expansion. But the way I see it is that there should be two separate point series, and we've kind of established that here. So if you're a European player, you can play in Europe. You can find success. You can develop your career. I think that the global or the world point standings will incorporate potentially more events in the future. This is hopefully setting the stage for us to be able to say, do we have a points event in Australia, in New Zealand, or in South America that can just be DGPT events, similar to the European? Now, Europe is the biggest market. It's had a rich history of development of the professional side of the game. So I think that this will be, the main hub of international development for a long time. But if we were going to do 1 or 2, 3 other international events, the system that we have in place now could integrate other points events, on a, even just one basis. And then you can look at points as hey, how many international events will contribute to the world standings, so to speak, right? Now the basis is going to be US, North America. The most events there where we've matured our events to a higher level, and we're going to keep pushing those. But I do think that with Juha, Mikko, Lev on board as our founding effort in Europe, they're going to shape what this European progress looks like. And I'd kick it to Juha to say, we want to do as much as we can as long as we are able to sustain it and grow it. So.
Yeah, it's that sums it pretty nicely, and I believe strongly on the European potential. Like somebody will guess from all the actions we have taken and where it has led up to, and I think for us in Europe, it's maybe a little bit easier road to be considered as a professional sport. Well, there's good examples from Estonia and Finland, where disc golf is in schools. The athletes are like superstars here, and I have to say it feels quite good. Like during the European Championships, we did the live streams there to disc golf stream, and we did it to Estonian national TV in Estonian language at the same time, and the president of Estonia comes to thank you for the really good live stream that they have, so he can watch disc golf, home on the couch. Like it feels quite nice. So there is a kind of we don't need to work so much on the image of the sport here. So we have a lot more kind of potential there, even that maybe the number of people playing is not that high here than in US. And I'm still believing that the 2 different tours there, that we have the own point systems, it serves the professional scene much better, because then also the European players, they can stay in Europe if they want, or go to US if they want, and trying to keep that possibility there as long as it can be. It's the mutual goal for us all, because we want to. And what we try to do is that the athletes can play disc golf as their full-time profession, instead of, needing to work during the week in McDonald's or somewhere.
Well, it's going to be very interesting to see how it all works out. I feel like we already saw so much growth and insight into the European market this year because it was more accessible to watch than it ever has been before. And obviously more European players coming to the States to compete in big tournaments. I don't know. I think it's just a matter of time before we get, MPO anyway, European champions at the biggest tournaments of the year. So thank you so much, Juha, Jeff. Good luck with the new endeavors, and it's going to be fun to follow along with everything European disc golf.
Thank you for having us here.
Thanks so much for having us.
All right, Jeff Spring, Juha Kytö with us here on the Upshot. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Upshot. Well, Josh, there you go. I mean, I find it all extremely sensible, logical, and maybe the tour feels like it's getting involved in this in a big way a little earlier than you might have expected, but it seems like it just made sense timing wise, and it's the long-term future of European disc golf seems bright to me.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'm excited for Pro Tour events to be over there. The West Coast swing people are not going to be happy. If you thought they were mad about how few events they were, well, now they're scheduled on a different continent at the same time.
Yeah, let's actually take a look at the schedule thing.
Yep.
Because,
so I was looking at it.
Yeah.
So DDO happens, then the weekend after is the beginning of the DGPT European schedule with the Copenhagen Open, and that's in May. Then you have OTB Open is the weekend after that. Then you have Portland Open, and then I think it runs over Beaver State. Nope, it's the weekend after Beaver State Fling. So it happens, and then so then you have
the West Coast swing is unencumbered, at least from it's not interrupted, right? We have
Correct.
These 3 consecutive events: OTB, Portland, Beaver State, on consecutive weekends. No, there actually there's an extra weekend to travel from California to Oregon in there.
Yeah. So the thing though is, like, I think if a player is going to commit to going over to Europe,
Yes,
they're not going to commit to go to West Coast as well, right? They're just going to stay East Coast. They probably skip DDO. They do Music City Open, and then they plan their European travel over.
might be about the same price to fly over to Europe,
Honestly,
than it is, because like if you're flying over to Europe in like late April, you're not going to pay huge fares.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't get that expensive to fly to Europe until after Memorial Day.
So their flights might be cheaper by doing it, and like
Potentially,
they may
especially
save some
depending
money.
on where you're flying. I don't know. I'm sure it's more expensive to go to like
Sure.
Nordic Europe where everything is brutally expensive. But it's it's more events than the West Coast swing. I don't know. But I like that it opens the door to this option.
I do too, and I really liked your question about do you want to have just a singular tour that everyone does? I think when the money is right, that's what I would prefer to see, where there are just no events or only silver events or silver adjacent events in the U.S.
Or you boost certain events points and value and payout so that it creates this sort of continuity for the top players to go to sort of this single chain of events wherever they are in the world.
Yeah. And
you still have lower level events in the US and in Europe and in Asia, whatever. But I think all of this is very interesting because it all feels like it's like happening very fast.
It does feel fast.
And like, are we there yet? Like, is Europe there yet? Is this going to be a financially sensible choice for the Pro Tour in the next couple of years? I don't know.
I don't know.
I feel like it's like pretty aggressive timeline, given that we don't really have a developed infrastructure the way that we did in the US when the Pro Tour kind of like really took things over 2 years ago.
Look, European Open has a blue Ford tee-off area.
You're not wrong.
I think there is some marketing opportunity, and it would not shock me if, from just the business side, those European events turn into some of the most financially lucrative for the Pro Tour.
I mean, certainly there are big opportunities in the right locations, right countries,
Right.
to get significant sponsorship because it simply is a big deal. Now, there's just fewer people that live in a lot of these countries, so the upside is capped in some way. But as we heard Juha talking about, the Estonian president is coming and being like, "Thank you for streaming this so I can watch Kristen."
Right.
And like, that's pretty cool.
That is
But
cool.
like, what's we did this once before. What's the population in Estonia? I'm going to look it up. And then, Josh, will you look up the population? So the Estonian population is 1.3 million. How many people live in Texas? I'm going to look it up, right?
29.5.
Take a
Oh,
guess.
I looked. I sorry.
29.5 million people live in Texas. Okay. 1.3 million people live in Estonia. As huge as it could get in Estonia, there is a limited upside there.
Yeah.
But, you do have businesses that sell to 1 million people. that might be interested in sponsoring your event. And so you're going to be able to get higher caliber sponsors than you might in the United States, where disc golf is still super niche. But man, think about that. Think about the difference, right? And so each of these little individual European countries, they simply don't have the population to command what the U.S. is going to have. So long run, though, I think it's going to end up feeling like, and maybe it already is there in Finland and Estonia, it's just a bigger deal for the people that live in those places.
I wonder how many texts Kristen has gotten from FPO players saying, "Hey, congratulations that you get to just play in Europe for 2 months. We're really excited for you."
I wonder if she'll choose that. I mean, I think that like Henna and Evelina are going to choose that. We've seen them already take off after the beginning of the season and stay in Europe. And now they have a mechanism to actually get into the Tour Championship.
Yeah.
Right? Because, I mean, they kind of got screwed.
They did.
Now, I mean, they chose they made a decision not to compete, but now they have this pathway to continue to get Pro Tour points, perhaps even easier than they would in the U.S.
Perhaps, like almost certainly, in my opinion. Yeah. But anyway, it'll be interesting how those people who play in Europe can qualify for the Pro Tour Championship, what the drops are going to look like, the Kristen rule, etc.
All right. That is going to do it for today's edition of the Upshot. Give us your off-season show thoughts. We've already been getting some good ones in the Discord from our subscribers. We're going to, of course, Rapid React season is over. So we're going to start transitioning into other Inside the Circle things as well. So stay tuned for more on that. And we're going to try to get a lot of recording done in the next couple of weeks before I'm out pretty much between the middle of November and January 1st is the likely scenario for me. So just be prepared for what comes of that. We may not be doing 2 shows a week. We probably won't be doing 2 shows a week, but we'll have some fun shows for you and some round tables and all the good stuff we like to do in the off season. And hey, Josh, hot stove season is coming.
Hot stove, here we go.
All right, that's going to do it for today's show. Spooky Halloween episode coming for you next Tuesday. We'll talk to you then, right here on The Upshot.